Good people, I'm Dmitry, and there was a time 3 years ago when Corsair first launched the Corsair ONE system, we asked if they would ever consider doing a Ryzen configuration, and at the time we got a flat no, it's not worth it. But how the tables have turned, because the Zen 2 processors are not only capable, but they are extremely competitive. So meet the latest iteration of the Corsair ONE ecosystem, the A100, a machine powered by Ryzen 9 and GeForce RTX, giving us insane power density in a 12-liter water-cooled enclosure. I am now starting to consider using this as my daily production machine instead of my custom water-cooled rig, but first let's see how this thing stacks up in terms of cooling, noise, and performance in all types of scenarios. There were a few surprises along the way, but it's exactly what I was expecting. It's powerful, it's small, and it's pricey. And still one of the very few pre-built systems that I would actually recommend. Alright, so first, I don't need to go over the design because it's exactly what it has been for the past few years. We have thick aluminum plates, triangular side ventilation, cool fins up top and bottom, and tasteful RGB strips that you should always set to one color. Please, you're not a savage. And because of the symmetrical design, I can now position the system on my left side. I really was hoping to see an updated I/O at the front though, to include USB-C, since most X570 ITX motherboards have an internal connector, and the same goes at the rear for the video output, since most RTX cards have a Type-C DisplayPort out, which isn't reflected with the new A100. There are 3 configurations with Ryzen 9, all carrying confusingly the same model name, with the price ranging between $3,000 and $4,000 as CPU and GPU and storage is upgraded, and the system I have is a 3950X, which unfortunately is a $400 premium over the mid-tier model that has the same specs but with a 3900X. The lowest tier A100 seems to be the best value to me out of all 3 and should outcompete the Intel equivalent with the 9700K and the 2080 Super. But let's not forget, Corsair launched the i200 in February with Intel 10 series for $4,500 that should compete directly with the high-end A100. In doing so, kind of revealing how good of a value the 3950X machine is in comparison. I'm really happy to see they are using an ASUS motherboard here, the X570i, with the rich I/O for an ITX machine, including Wi-Fi 6, and utilizing the PCIe Gen 4 for insanely fast storage speeds with that MP600 NVMe SSD. The power supply is a 600 watt gold SFX fully modular unit from Corsair, the SF600. RAM is a dual DIMM 32GB Corsair Vengeance kit at 3200 MHz. So aside from the GPU, the motherboard and the Seagate hard drive, everything inside is by Corsair. I'm surprised to find no accessories, not even the ridiculous shark fin Wi-Fi antenna from ASUS, because we have normal antennas here. And if you were to build your own with the exact same components, of course, you are saving a bit on cash, that's understandable, but the difference in price actually makes the A100 kind of competitive in the space of pre-builds because of this thing's unique cooling system. All the pre-builds I configured myself to match the hardware of my A100 had a pretty significant price variance. Like the iBuyPower was fairly close to the DIY price, the CyberPower PC with the awesome O11 dynamic was even cheaper at $3,300, but these are all fairly large systems, so when we start to go small, the Digital Storm Bolt X now showcases the price premium of a custom SFF machine, while the Origin PC running Micro ATX is also well above 4K USD. That highlights the main advantage of the Corsair ONE system, which is the small size of this computer with capable enough cooling. So there's one fan up top exhausting all the heat generated from the internals, while the CPU and GPU have their own passive all-in-one coolers with slim radiators, and it's kind of impressive what the system can achieve without fans sitting directly on the radiators. The only other active cooling component is a small fan on the GPU that's cooling the VRMs and the PCB, and that now has a guard, but that's about it. Getting inside is easy, and it does not void your warranty, which is awesome, so you can swap out components or clean the machine with everything neatly organized out of the box. You can only control the top fan RPM inside IQ, as GPU fan and pumps are automatic. Let's first go over gaming performance versus my other Corsair ONE, as it has the same GPU, and games like Doom Eternal, Titanfall 2, The Witcher 3, and Control all perform in the same space for FPS. The two outliers here include with BF5, where higher CPU clocks on the 9900K deliver better frame rate, but the latest COD had me confused because the Ryzen 9 system had much better 1% lows, while GPU clocks were very close. This might be due to higher memory speed on the new A100 system, but the game also benefits from higher core count when it comes to the 1% lows, as you can see here from our earlier review, where the 3900X has better 1% lows versus the 9900K, so our result here makes sense. Now, when we take a look at temperatures over time, both 2080 Ti's eventually stabilize around the 60-degree mark, which is impressive for this caliber of a GPU. And when we plot frequencies over time, the card on the A100 boosts 50 megahertz higher versus the other system. Of course, you can max out the power limit inside MSI Afterburner, but I found that in like 20 minutes, it still boosts below 1900 megahertz while giving you much hotter temperatures. Now, CPU temperatures during gaming are totally under control on both machines, but with a lot less fluctuations versus the 9900K. But I do have to mention the fan curve on the A100 system is a lot more aggressive because the 3950X is putting out so much extra heat versus the 9900K, so the fan has to basically constantly be spinning, versus on the Corsair i165 machine, the fan at idle completely shuts down. And so that in turn helps to cool the GPU on the Ryzen system, which is why it's cooler in the first 7 minutes of my gaming test. But that also means that the A100 is not as quiet as the i165. However, they're both equally loud at load. Another thing to mention is that for some reason, the GPU fan on my A100 system is louder versus the i165, which is audible. And also both machines exhibit some sort of coil whine, which is audible when the fans are not spinning, but when there's some form of airflow going on, it does kind of like help to drown out all the coil whine. And I wanted to leave the best for last, as the 3950X really flexes its muscles in any CPU intensive task. So in programs like Blender, it is twice as fast as my 9900K system, completing all 6 benchmarks. The same applies for Cinebench scores. And I was very surprised at DaVinci Resolve render times using the native encoder instead of NVIDIA, giving me incredibly fast H.264 exports with the A100 machine that unfortunately doesn't give me any significant advantage over my own Threadripper PC. And finally, let's take a look at temperatures over time on both machines. And what we get here is a bit of a struggle with the 3950X, as the tiny radiator manages all it can to carry the heat away. The average temperature hits 85 degrees Celsius after the first 5 minutes, with several hot spikes during the operation, while the 9900K is more under control. When we overlay frequencies over time, both fluctuate quite a bit, with the 3950X dropping clocks around the 10-minute mark to stabilize temperatures with an average of 3.9 GHz throughout the operation, while the 9900K actually increased the frequencies after 5 minutes, but with many more fluctuations, averaging at 4.2 GHz. And finally, CPU power for both looks normal, 95 watt on the 9900K without any added enhancements through the motherboard, while the 3950X fluctuated like a heartbeat, trying to modulate for best frequencies and controlled temperatures. So what we have here is a 3950X stacked inside an extremely compact 12-liter enclosure with, I would say, pretty adequate cooling. It is not fantastic, but frequencies behave as expected, and my only concern here is the lack of any more potential for cooling. It's not like we can increase the fan speed anymore. It's clear that Corsair had prioritized on form factor, noise profile, and just cramming as much power as possible without redesigning the whole cooling system to accommodate a much hotter chip like the 3950X. But it's still carrying the torch on what the original Corsair ONE formula tried to achieve, and that is give you incredible power density, and this PC is it, both for play and for work. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the A100. The naming scheme is a bit odd, especially you cannot differentiate between the other models. However, A200 is potentially on the horizon with hopefully redesigned elements on the exterior and on the interior to accommodate the latest hardware. Alright, I'm Dimitri, thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant content, subscribe for more. I'll talk to you in the next video. Also, YouTube unverified us on YouTube, so that's fun. Make sure to contact them on behalf of us. Let's make some noise.